It looks like in the next few days, Arsenal will have officially wrapped up that signing. Mikel Merino will be a new Arsenal player for a decent price as well, too. I'm hearing below 30 million pounds. Can't lie, chat. I think that's a great deal. One of the biggest issues that I looked at Arsenal in terms of last season and going forward was that left central midfield position. And at the start of the season, they went and deployed their new summer signing, Kai Havertz, in left-sided midfield. So the midfield was Declan Rice, Odegaard, Kai Havertz. I've been on the record saying this, and I'll continue saying it now. In my opinion, Arsenal wasted the first half of their season playing Kai Havertz in left central midfield. And to be fair, they still did okay. They were still in and around the top places in the league for the first half of the season. It's not like their season blew up from there. They almost won the league. But for me, playing Kai Havertz in left central midfield was... I still really, guys, cannot wrap my mind around why Mikel Arteta decided to do this. I have no idea. I actually, as you guys may know, think Kai Havertz is a very good player. But he's a very good player playing up front. He has tools. Although he's not the most clinical goal scorer, and I don't think he'll ever be someone that consistently gets you 20 plus goals in the league every single season. He's a forward that, in my opinion, improves you as an attacking team if he starts for you. In terms of his ball retention, in terms of his ability to hold up play, in terms of his runs inside the box, his intelligence. I think he's an intelligent player, but he's all of that stuff playing up front. For me, never ever in the area that Mikel Arteta tried deploying him the first half of the season. That experiment lasted half the year, and then the second half of the season, Jorginho really came into the 11 much more often, pushed Declan Rice a little bit forward, and Arsenal all of a sudden found a newfound balance. They were in incredible form for most of the second half of the season. And like we all know, they almost won the league. But it was very obvious for most people looking at that Arsenal needed to resolve that left central midfield position as soon as the summer started. Because Havertz can no longer play in that position. You got to ditch that experiment full time. And Jorginho, while he does offer you some things, is coming towards an end of his career and probably doesn't suit this Arsenal team as well as an actual player in that left-sided role could, moving Declan Rice to a defensive midfield. So it appears that the solution that Arteta has decided to go for is Mikel Merino. Obviously, I think he's 28 years old, Real Sociedad, Spanish international. He actually played in the Premier League, funny enough. And I have to say this, right? I feel like it's a Mandela effect, but I was convinced, right? I watched Merino in the Premier League for Newcastle. And at the time, I always thought he's actually a decent player. But chat, I have to be honest. I was convinced that Merino went from Newcastle to Borussia Dortmund. But my mind must have been playing tricks on me, because apparently he went from Dortmund to Newcastle. For my entire life, I was convinced that Merino left Newcastle to go to Dortmund. It was the other way around. But I've always found him a very solid player. Is he a world beater? In my opinion, no. But does Arsenal need a world beater in that position, or do they need a guy that A, knows the position very well and can correctly execute the role within Arteta's system? Some could argue that that's just as important as just signing a world beater in that position. And I think in Mikel Merino, they are signing a guy who will be able to slot seamlessly, in my eyes, in Mikel Arteta's team. Let's look at a few of his qualities, right? He's a big guy. I think he's 6 foot, which for a Spanish midfielder isn't the most common thing. He's 6'2", excuse me. Mikel Merino is 6'2". So you look at the team that Arteta has built at Arsenal, right? The direction that the side has kind of gone towards. This is no longer a team that you can physically bully anymore. They have grown men all over the pitch. From Saliba and Gabriel in the back, Ben White at right back, in midfield Declan Rice, up front Kai Havertz, and now next to him, a guy like Mikel Merino. Arteta is building this team to be physically better than almost every single team that they play against in any competition that they're in. And Mikel Merino is only adding towards that. Another thing about Mikel Merino that I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, did he have the most duels completed or the most duels that he actually engaged in all of Europe last season? I think I saw a graphic that involved that. And if that's the case, duels won, excuse me. And if that's the case, again, it fits right into what Arteta is trying to kind of make this Arsenal team look like. A physical, commanding, duel-winning monster of a team. You have great individual duel winners all over the pitch. I just named a few of them. And in Mikel Merino, you are again adding a guy like that into midfield. Let's look at his technical skill set. Left foot, right foot, adept at either. Very good passer, very good in possession. Wouldn't say he has an eye for goal, but he can pop up in those positions and score goals. I actually think when you look at this signing, it's not one that absolutely blows anybody away. It's not going to be in people's top 10 signings of the summer, at least once the summer ends. And it's not going to get people off their seat. Arsenal fans might even be a little frustrated because maybe they had sold themselves on this idea that, oh, maybe we wait a year and we get Frankie de Jong. Or, oh, maybe it's a Bruno Guimaraes kind of signing. Maybe it's Zubimendi. But I think it's one of those signings that, again, people will doubt at the beginning. But I have no doubt in my mind that in 12 months, we'll be looking at Mikel Merino and saying, yeah, you know what? Arteta and Edu, they were very savvy in the window yet again. And the signing of Mikel Merino reinforces that. And I also look at the guy that they had before him in that position, right? Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka, before Mikel Arteta really came in, was a laughing stock. He was a guy that was painted as the villain at Arsenal, and he was a player that every single fan at the club would have loved to see him go. In fact, I'm sure if you asked most fans at the time of Emery's departure and Arteta's arrival, Xhaka would have been one of the first players that Arsenal fans would have probably said he needs to go. But in the right setup and in the right system, Granit Xhaka went from a laughingstock to, in my opinion, one of the most effective midfielders in the entire league. And he's gone on to show that both for Switzerland in subsequent tournaments and now for Bayer Leverkusen, helping them go unbeaten in the Bundesliga. I look at Mikel Merino, and again, he's not a player that, just like Xhaka was like everybody's cup of tea. He wasn't a player that you would have said, oh, he's a top 10 midfielder in the league. And I don't believe that. But there's no reason in my mind why Mikel Merino can't arrive to Arsenal this summer, find himself in that 11, and make Arsenal a better team. Help Arsenal win football games. Help Arsenal get that much closer to the final evolution of what Mikel Arteta considers his side. But I will say this, right, chat? I'm not one of those people that thinks, oh, everything Arteta does is perfect, and oh, everything Arteta does is part of the plan. Everything he does is on purpose. I don't know if his plan all along was to play Kai Havertz in midfield. I have no idea if that was the case. But the arrival of Mikel Merino, for me, makes Arsenal's decision to let Granit Xhaka go when they did that much more puzzling. And I started off saying, I'm not a believer that if you don't know what you're talking about, you should just still continue to speak. I'm very happy to be corrected here. But as far as I know, did Granit Xhaka not leave Arsenal because of like a breakdown in communication in contracts? Or was it purely a case of like Granit Xhaka had decided no matter what, I want to go? Was it a case of him wanting to leave? Or was it a case that Arsenal couldn't really match his contractual obligations? Most of the people here are saying he wanted to go. If that's the case, apologies. It makes a bit more sense. But I look at last season, how good Arsenal were. I actually think if Granit Xhaka had stayed, that could have been the difference. That could have been the difference in Arsenal winning or losing the league. I think he's that good of a player, and I think he was that crucial to that team in that position. However, like I said, I think Merino can come into the team, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee that he'll be able to replicate what Xhaka did, because I personally think Xhaka is a better player than Merino. But I don't think it's by miles. I don't think Merino is all of a sudden like a massive downgrade on anything Arsenal have had in that position. I do think he can come in, and like I said, fulfill a role. Be another big body in there. Be another guy very adept in possession. Pop up with 3-4 goals this season and help Arsenal get that much closer to achieving their overall goals this season. So look, my analysis on this, I think it's a good signing. I think it's a very, very good signing. Is the business done for Arsenal? I don't think it should be. I think they still need to be looking for another attacker that helps them find solutions in difficult moments during games. And that's a very tough kind of profile to find because those are called match winners and those are called players of X factor. And those players don't go for 30 million like Mikel Merino. You're looking at breaking the bank for a player of that caliber. But in my eyes, that's the kind of footballer and that's the kind of signing that will, in my eyes, push Arsenal past that next tier. Merino is a good signing and improves them. But in terms of really getting over the hump, I do think they need that quality, that caliber of player. Unfortunately, we all know it's not that easy to find those players. But I think that's the next step for them.